I chair the meeting, so no one speaks unless they catch my eye, raise their hand, and then I give it to you. Secondly, we don't speak over anybody else. Thirdly, we're going to bring forward some items so that people who are ready for items can do it fairly quickly, but you are very welcome to participate in the meeting. Okay, this is being recorded, so it's important that you speak slowly and clearly, and then also, if people, you don't have to stand in our standing orders. If you find it difficult to stand, don't understand, you don't have to stand. Sometimes people can hear you better if you stand, but that's up to you. The second thing is mobile phones, please put them on silent. And that's it. Okay, so town clerk, any apologies for absence?
We've received apologies from four councillors, Sandy, Jazz, Trim and Norman, some business, some non-business related.
So can I refer to accept those apologies? Seconded by Councillor Wheeler, thank you. And take a vote. Well, you don't get a vote. Okay, item 3, declaration of interest and request for dispensation. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, town crier, the founder member of the Wimborne militia, and there is an item on discussion tonight, which I should install on as I present the programme on radio.
Councillor Wheeler.
I'm chair of Folk Festival and I'm also bandmaster of the town band.
Councillor Bartlett.
Daughter Councillor, councillor, and also a member of the Youth Cabinet Committee.
Yeah, dispensation is. Councillor Burt.
Trustee of East Dorset Heritage Trust.
Thank you. Okay,
Oh, and
yes.
the priest house, John must get it right, the Museum of East Dorset.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so what I suggest we do, councillors, is to move up some of the items so that visitors don't have to stay for the whole meeting. Have we got the person about fees in the cemetery?
No, I don't think they're here, but we'll just take their correspondence later if you have to.
Yeah, yeah. The next item, I think, is a really good one. We've had a letter from an unborn student about the town, what they think about the town, and we've suggested she comes and reads that to the council. And I'm really pleased that you're all here to hear this. So, Izzy, do you want to come up here?
Wimborne, we have a problem. The problem is the roads are dirty, the streets are dirty, and the roads are everywhere. We as a community are walking down and noticing that it doesn't go. My idea is to clean up Wimborne. We can do it on a weekend in the spring or summer when the weather is right. How will we do this? First, we'll need to ask the town council to support us by closing the road. Next, we need to contact the Minster press and tell everybody in the town. We also need to tell the vicar and the mayor. Then we can make some posters and put up in town. We can ask the people, the schools, families, and all the clubs in town to help us. We're going to need a huge box of rubber gloves, a mountain of little pickers, an elephant or shovels, and a high sack of good man. Not to mention a town full of buckets. I said not to mention a town full of buckets. When we have collected rubbish, we are going to need 20 rubbish bags. The town council will put such people in town. We need these anyway. If you are thirsty or hungry, there will be food just for you, instead of fruits and drinks. The results will be the town will be tidy and clean. We'll have more visitors and we'll feel happy and better about us. And who knows, we may even be the town and culture again. Thank you.
That took a lot of bravery, so I think the report was really well deserved. And how do you feel about reading the letter? Okay, very good. And tell us a bit about how you did the letter. Was it with class or?
I used
Spider by
and I wrote all the ideas and then I put them down on the computer and them come out.
well done. How old are you?
No.
Okay, just stay there and I'll take any comments. Okay, any comments?
The young lady is perfectly correct. I'll just go on board.
Thank you, Mr. White. Okay, councillor Wheeler.
I'd just like to say, well done, totally support the initiative. I'd be happy, to be part of your committee if you put me together to help you achieve it.
I mean. Councillor Brown.
I was a bit upset you didn't ask the town crier to shout. But I'd be happy to get involved in it and help you. When I was younger and travelling, I spent some time in the Gambia in Africa. And they have one day every month where everybody has to clean up outside their house. And it's done and it's spotless. And if you if there's a bit of extra space, people will take responsibility for that as well. No, I think it's a great idea. Well done.
Anybody else? Councillor Stewart. Councillor. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, you need to get in touch with the community highways officer so he can help to coordinate part of this, because working with the roads, obviously there's certain restrictions about it, obviously. But I think it's a fantastic idea, and if we can get in touch with the community highways officer, of course, the council, and say he can help coordinate part of that.
Any other councillor?
Sorry, councillor Bart, can you just repeat that last section for me?
To get in touch with the community highways officer at Dorset Council, because he can help coordinate this, because if there is health and safety implications, I know, but if there is, it's back alive.
Okay, we'll come to councillors. Councillor Burt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I read the letter with interest, and I've been having the streets of Wimborne for almost 90 years. And I didn't recognise some of it because I don't see it all covered in dirt. Graffiti here and there and rubbish. But I think if anybody who doesn't know Wimborne was to read the letter, well, I read it when it came out with the agenda, would be surprised that everybody seems to think that that place is dirty. I don't get that impression that it's as bad as perhaps the young lady describes, and I hope she won't mind me saying that. But I walk some of the streets in Wimborne quite regularly. And I was around the high street and the square today, and I looked around, and the streets, I don't see them as being dirty. The main problem, of course, is the A boards and notices which are on the pavements and in the way of quite a number of people. There's a lot of people now sitting out in the open. There were today because the sun was shining outside Roma and other places. And the only thing that I noticed that worried me was litter here and there. Just my comment.
It's also like in front of my school when I'm walking down the road, I could hear some of the dirt and over it.
Yeah, I say that. And it's, yeah, so I've seen that. I also see the signs that are not clear because they're covered in green. And even if you came over Julian's Bridge, it's filthy. The entrance to the town needs tidying up. There is a lot to do, so I'm still pretty behind you.
Councillor Roberts.
Well, I think this young lady has a very, very good point. But a lot of it is education of our children not to throw litter. I live on Victoria Road, and Huey and some Allenbourne students regularly walk up and down there, crisp packets, Coca-Cola bottles, and you just watch them do it. And they have no concept of who is going to pick that up. And to be quite honest, I'm fed up with going out to my front garden and having to pick up the litter. So I think it's a lot of it is to do with education and how these children have been brought up not to care about things. You're obviously an exception to the rule.
Okay, councillor Nash.
Just to pick up on one of the points you made, the bins on a Saturday and Sunday are overflowing already. We're at the start of summer. It's not even been a large event in the town yet. And I think that discourages people from using them because they're not usable. I think a recycling bin next to the regular bins would be a fantastic idea, and I think we should push that very hard.
Agreed. Thank you, councillors. Neil, do you want to say something?
Yeah, so just say thank you for bringing this to our attention. I'm one of the trustees of Planet Wimborne, and one of our affiliated groups is Wimborne War on Waste. And you are very welcome to join us. We are on the next one is on April, Sunday, the 26th of April at 11:30 in the morning. You come to the fairground shop if you know where that is. I'm sure your parents probably know. I see a nod there in the back. They provide all the equipment you will need. You just need to bring yourself and your enthusiasm, and maybe some of your fellow pupils as well would be most welcome. And then you can come around town and help us keep it clean. So I hope to see you there.
That's a nice positive suggestion.
Is there anything the town council would like to do to support indeed in terms of putting the request to a relevant committee to progress?
I would suggest that in fact you come to our youth council. Are you on the youth council? No, we've got a youth council that means that children, more schools and scouts and things. Meet them? Yeah. The other ideas?
No, I think as Councillor Natter pointed out, the recycling side of things, if we can do something with the bins, that would be something I think that we could do. And I think, a nice wall there to Planet Wimborne asking to be involved in whatever way we can be as a council with the initiative and join up with what Izzy's proposal is. I'm up for a bit of that.
Sorry, can I just add to that, what councillor Nash has said? I came down to town the other day and unfortunately I didn't have my phone with me. And the bins were disgusting. They were overflowing. There was bags by the side of them. Especially the one outside the co-op, which I know from past experience used to be emptied by the co-op themselves. So I don't know where we get with that. But if I'd had my phone, I thought it was a very good example to start off the town of culture.
Thank you. Okay, yes.
Can I just mention, I think it's a brilliant one. And I think it's really good that we should listen to the youth a little bit more as well. Couple of things in terms of the recycling bins. I remember about 2 or 4 years ago in this very room, Councillor Barton was present when I suggested we needed recycling bins around the town. And I was told that was going to be looked into. So that's one thing. And the other one, which I'd like to add on to, which I have been involved in, which is the reason why I was here 3 or 4 years ago, in the Wimborne and Bloom, we got the water for cleaning up the rivers. The Arun in particular gets a huge amount of rubbish. And whilst there is education in the schools and they do extremely good work, it seems to get lost when it gets to middle school upwards. But if we could also incorporate something, I'm happy to lead that because we did do it. We haven't done it for the last 2 years, but you'll be amazed just how much stuff gets into the river.
What's your name?
David Eames.
Very much. Okay.
So yeah, can I propose that we ask the Planning and Environment Committee to look into the provision of bins and hazard resourcing capital.
Sorry, look into the provision of bins and.
Hazard exactly.
Okay.
Okay, second then. Do you want to vote on that? Yeah, all the better. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so we're now going to pick up the Radio Wimborne item, and I propose to do it this way. We had a very eloquent letter from a resident, and I thought, well, the residents kindly come, just hear that letter, then Mark and Andy will say a few words to us, and then we're going to hear from Jan, is it? Jan Britton, and I'm going to ask Kevin if we can find that he will just stop for 3 minutes. Okay. So we're going to start with Edna Smith.
This is following on from the announcement on Radio Wimborne.
I was shocked and saddened to hear on Radio Wimborne this morning that they may be forced to go off air. Radio Wimborne is an established community asset, providing entertainment and information to the local area. They're always promoting Wimborne and the surrounding area, the local businesses and community groups. Radio Wimborne is managed and staffed by dedicated volunteers who have worked hard over the years to create the station we now have. As a member of the public and an active community group member, it is really disappointing to hear that they have apparently been given very short notice, to vacate their current premises with no alternative options for them in the immediate future. I understand that the intention is to convert the current building for use as a youth cafe. I fully acknowledge that Wimborne really needs a centre where young people can gather, but removing one excellent community asset to replace it with another seems a very strange move. Please can you support Radio Wimborne by using your influence on Wimborne Town Council to either extend their occupation of the current building or by helping them find a suitable alternative? Thank you.
Okay, Malcolm, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, great. I'm not zealot from that. I'm great. Mr. Mayor, a quick statement first, if you don't mind. Radio Wimborne, as we just discussed, is an Ofcom licensed station, community station with over 30 dedicated presenters, a few of them around the room tonight, broadcasting across the east to the southeast of Dorset. For many years, we've been operating under license from a small council-owned studio in Wimborne. We've had a good relationship with Dorset Council. That I must make absolutely clear. We've always had a good relationship with Dorset Council. Now, being jointly with the council, looking for alternative accommodation. We understood that if the station building was needed for better use, then we would accommodate elsewhere, as our voluntary unpaid work community was recognised by the council as a valuable community asset. We broadcast across the region supporting the promoting charities and community projects. We work with schools, Beaucroft College SEO, for instance, training young people in radio and broadcast skills as a career choice. Some of us have gone on to actually be employed. Promote communication skills and building confidence. We wanted. Yes, we have been shown one place last year, which was some offices of the courts. We did not say we weren't interested. It was dilapidated and some windows were broken. We did not say we were uninterested. But the officer who was new to the council showed us around, was very positive, said he had some other thoughts for us as well. Of course, he appreciated what we do. But however, we've never heard from him again. Right? Never heard from him again. We have not had communication offering us property or help. Other than when I worked once with Craig Bates, here's my telephone. He started in the previous Conservative administration, which was great of him, and gradually found he could not find us any accommodation. We were still in contact with him until the new council took over, and then slowly I think he moved to another job. However, we still don't have any truck with Dorset Council. A mistake has been made here somewhere. Dorset Council have always behaved impeccably to us. For goodness sake, they've allowed us to use their building. We are very, very grateful for that. And they say now that the council remains willing to explore this or any other viable options to support Radio Wimborne's continued operation. And I think that's good of them. So please don't slag off Dorset Council. We don't like using that language. Okay, now I used to get enough of that. I was a district councillor. So this is my question. The question from the station to you, if I can just find it, excuse me. Right, there we go. Question. It's in two parts really. What, if any, consideration was given to the time it takes to move a radio station? We were only given 3 weeks. You cannot do it in that time. We're a proper licensed station that operates from Swanage on the coast, in Paul and Bournemouth, and right up through here, doing nothing other than promote Wimborne's charities and what we do, and working with charities ourselves. And we are here to ask the council for your help and support in this, by supporting us in our efforts to find another building. And we hope that you might join in with Dorset Council to try and find a way that you can keep us in some kind of accommodation. That's our question to this council. Is that good enough, Mr. Chairman? Thank you very much. 3 minutes? Yes.
Thank you. On 3 minutes, okay. So, let's just hear from a few of our own councillors, just to clarify that in fact it's Dorset Council who have got the role of this, not us, but of course we are very interested and very supportive of the radio station because they're working with us within our community. But councillor, any comments? Councillor Nash.
I'm afraid I have to show my ignorance here. I don't quite understand. This is the building at the Allendale Centre, is it?
Yes.
Allen View, perfect. And
The back of it.
am I right in thinking the reasoning that Dorset County are giving is that they want to put youth services or some kind of youth cafe in there? Yeah.
We're going to hear in a minute from Dorset Council.
Sorry. Okay. Well, yeah. It's been my experience in the last year and a half of doing this that that promise doesn't seem to have come in the past 5 years. We took an action to move to provide youth services ourselves as Wimborne Town Council, and whilst any help is welcome in that regard, I think maybe they might be trying to put it in a thing that we've already put in, and it might save them some money and you some bother if we leave it in the same place. So I'd be very much for that.
So just to clarify what Councillor Nash is saying, we have put in the budget this coming year a similar money to provide a sort of youth service in the town. The first time really. Councillor Billington.
Thank you, Mr. Burr. I was just going to reinforce Councillor Nash's point, really, and indeed your point. And I'd like clarification, if possibly the town clerk could say, what is the current responsibility and who has current responsibility for youth provision in Wimborne, and what is the potential for that to change for the next few years?
So no one is providing a youth service within Wimborne at the moment. We have reached out to a neighbouring charity that specialises in youth service provision, who are looking to put in a service on our behalf within Wimborne. That's the town council's service. Does that answer your question?
It does, and if I could just ask a supplementary one. So what is Dorset County Council's responsibility at the moment for youth provision?
I'm going to leave Dorset Council to answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments from councillors? Councillor Chapawata.
Thank you, Chair. So I was interested in the idea of the youth provision was we had a meeting here last November, and I think we're all present. We put some money towards we have recognized that we need a youth service. Certainly we do. My worry would be probably two competing services, and I asked the chief executive of Dorset Council on Friday what governance due diligence has been done, because my worry would be we could move Radio Wimborne out of this site. The service moves in where there's been no due diligence, for whatever reason, the struggle, that building becomes vacant. So I have concerns about due diligence undertaken by Dorset Council, funding, and are we going to be, competing services? Why don't we just sort of channel our efforts into the,
Work together.
we work together. When we're in the meeting here, we are stakeholders. There was no discussion about this service the youth cafe that I'm aware of. There have been no papers that I'm aware of. So that's my concern, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Burt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In 1966, the Methodist Church opened, and the first floor was for a youth centre. And the Dorset County Council, as it was in those days, and I still regret the fact that it's still not the county council anymore. But I won't go down the road of reorganisation because I'm not happy with what's happened. And the Dorset County Council supplied a full-time youth leader. Actually, the person is still living in Wimborne. That worked for quite a number of years until the finance was withdrawn. And then there was no real provision by way of a youth service at that time. I think we then got involved with Coal Hill on the reef. And that was supposed to serve as a youth provision for Coal Hill and Wimborne. But unfortunately, of course, Coal Hill, the reef by the church up there, is a little way away from Wimborne, and people don't go. Where I see the most teenagers now in the town, to be quite honest, is in Costa Coffee. And if you go to Costa Coffee at round about 3:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon, there's quite a number of teenagers in there. I know that I'm not a teenager, unfortunately, anymore. But that's where I end up having a cup of coffee and quite regularly. I'm not sure how this can be overcome. The county council used to be responsible for the youth service, and there was an area youth officer, and there was various youth provision. There was a new youth centre was built in Corfmullen at Lockyer School, and then there was said about the reef. But at the moment, there is no particular provision for youth work in Wimborne, which is a shame. And I hope that can be addressed. The responsibility for it, of course, now is with the Dorset Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Just to clarify, we do give a small grant to the reef for the town council, so that any Wimborne children who get choose to go there, that support them really. Shall I now call on Jan to speak? Well, council. Sorry.
Thank you, that's fine, yes, thank you. My name is Jan Britton, I'm an Executive Director at Dorset Council, and within my remit as an Executive Director includes the property functions of the council. So I've got 2 or 3 things that I can say. The first is to apologise. The short notice was an error on Dorset Council's part. I acknowledge that. We were led into a mistake by the fact it's a tenancy at will, which means there isn't a notice period. But on reflection, we should have been alert to the fact that you would need a longer time to move. We've now extended that notice period to 3 months, and we will be happy and welcoming of a continuing dialogue with you, because it is not in our interest or yours or anybody's interest to see Radio Wimborne made homeless. So if in due course we need to extend that notice period further, we will give proper and due consideration to doing so. Equally, because it's not in anyone's interest for the building to be left empty at any point. So to start with, an apology for the notice issue, and I do mean that most sincerely. In terms of the future use of that building, we have been talking to a number of people in the community formed as a youth cafe committee. But in the course of recent days, it's come more firmly and clearly to my attention that that committee isn't perhaps joined in with the work that the town council are doing around future youth provision. And it's Dorset Council's wish that we work as closely as we can with you in the town council around future youth provision in Wimborne. To pick up the question about whose duty youth services are, top tier councils like Dorset have many powers, but not necessarily duties and obligations. So the council has a power to provide youth services, but we're not obliged by the law to provide a particular level of youth service provision. And it's with regret that I have to say that over the years, many councils under financial pressure have cut back on their provision of youth services, and indeed worked in many places around the country with district councils and town and parish councils to ensure that there is something in local communities. And my wish would be that Dorset Council work with you to try and provide something for young people in Wimborne. And clearly that might include the provision of property or working on property issues, but it could include any other sort of aspect that we may be able to help with. So it is sincerely not our interest to make Radio Wimborne homeless. We will work with Radio Wimborne to ensure that doesn't happen. We would like to work with you around future youth provision in the town, and I'm happy to take any questions. I think I've said what I needed and set out to say.
Councillor Biddle, to make a point.
Yeah, I just, so what this council has done, voted on and taken a hit probably publicly because of the precept increase that we've had to endure, is we've put a significant amount of money aside to put a youth service provision in, joined up with a neighbouring town council. We're seeking to deliver that. So that's the position of this council. I would really like to talk to you about property. We too had a tour around the magistrates with, I think, probably the same gentleman, and that never went. We expressed an interest, but that never went anywhere. And we looked at other places around the town. So it's music to my ears that you're up for that, and I'd like a dialogue with you over it if that's okay.
Yes, I'd be very pleased to do that. Your town clerk was really helpful in the last few days, talking me through some of the things that you are doing in Wimborne, including the issue of the precept. And we understand that's a hard decision for the town council to have made, but I have to say I applaud it because that would help move forward youth service provision in Wimborne, where otherwise, you know, things may not have happened at all. But I would be very pleased to continue the dialogue.
What we don't do is try and solve a problem and cause another problem. So we're not. We wouldn't want to do that.
I'm with you on that completely.
Councillor Chucklebutter. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you. Good to see you again. I think my concern is what was the trigger to this. So we've had Wimborne operating there for a number of years. Yeah. We give them 3 weeks notice to leave that building. What due diligence does the council undertaking to make sure that whoever is proposing new capital, which I was not aware of with the discussion here before minutes, what due diligence have you undertaken as a council regarding the future use of the building in terms of governance, finances and everything else?
We've been talking to the Youth Cafe Committee about taking on a lease for that building. As we go into a lease negotiation, we normally undertake whatever due diligence we consider necessary. Now, most often that's property and financial due diligence, but when somebody is proposing a youth facility or a facility for other people, we normally extend that due diligence to ensure that they are fit and proper people to be running that type of facility. But because we were in early stages in the discussion, we haven't got to the formal point of doing that in writing, but that would have been part of the process of building up a lease. In truth, what we found in the last few days is that the Youth Cafe Committee, while enthusiastic, are not yet ready to take on the lease for a building, and that's why I can say with sincerity that triggering that notice period was an error and shouldn't have happened. And it was a simple error; it wasn't in any sense intentional. You know, we won't continue to sort of trigger an exit. It really isn't nobody's interest that our building stands empty for any length of time. That would just be a magnet for other problems.
Should we carry on? Councillor Hector.
Thank you. So if you're at the point of triggering this notice to Radio Wimborne, I can assume you have the business plans, the way of working to change the building to make it fit for purpose. Have you got all these sort of plans ready? Because I'm curious to know if maybe triggering the notice was a bit premature, because we certainly weren't aware or seen any plans, you know, of it being designed into the cafe, sort of how things are going to work. It should be something obviously we do want to work with and know about, but we haven't seen any plans.
No, I think premature is a good word.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a lot of things to cover. So in 2017, the town council took the decision to support a youth cafe in 2017. Myriad of reasons as why that committee wasn't as successful as it should have been. I'm not going to go into the reasons as to why the building eventually fell into the lap of Wimborne Radio. But things have progressed through. It was a very difficult time through LGR, through COVID, through a local government reorganisation, through the transformation within Dorset Council, continual changes within the officer team, both at the senior level, and there has been no continuity within police services in terms of the officers. And I know, because I chaired the scrutiny committee for 4 years, that was having to deal with it. And when you take all these things into remit, on an upper tier authority like that, these are really restrictive and the council trying to do its work. Now, there are lots about due diligence. So the youth cafe building, it was always intended for youth provision to take on the role that the planning used to do in this town. But as Jan said, the upper tier authorities with their budgets, they're struggling as they were, the county council had withdrawn from youth provision. The Planet building was owned by East Dorset District Council. When we went into LGR, they liquidated that asset, got a capital receipt on it to take to the table for the new Dorset Council. All the district councils did that. And so there was no youth provision within Dorset, and it was desperately needed. And it's recognised within Children's Services at Dorset Council that there is no provision for youth facilities within Wimborne. So when we talk about the due diligence, that's a time frame that needs to be had. So we're at the position now where the youth cafe need to sit down with the officers of Dorset Council, and we have to understand what Dorset Council want and what the youth cafe committee want. And we've got a individual that's ready to write the business plan once we know from both sides what's wanted. And it's perfectly right. The town council, Dorset Council, and the youth cafe committee should all be working together to provide that youth facility within Wimborne. I would also say that this has come with significant funding. The capital funding is in the programme. It's £5.5 million. So that was to provide the youth cafe with all the structural works and the changes that were needed, and also for a multi-stakeholder building that would be built in Wimborne, of which Radio Wimborne was going to be a part of. And that would have been a purpose-built studio for that organisation. We had meetings with the directors, but they decided they didn't want to go down that route. That was early days. I'm hoping we can return to it. I'm hoping we can open those discussions again, because it would give them a base of operations far beyond their wildest imagination of what they could have. But again, this is where the interested parties need to sit down in the room with Dorset Council officers, with the stakeholders as well, to have a discussion around how they can make that business model work. And if Dorset Council don't want to return that building in terms of a commercial rental, it would repay the building. The building is estimated to be something in the region of £2 million to deliver. So Dorset Council is not in a position of breaking charities. They enable infrastructure to come into a community to better that community. But it needs the parties to come to the table, sit around the table and have that detailed discussion about how it can be achieved. And Jan might want to add to that, I don't know.
Okay, Councillor, simply to echo your point that in working with many communities across Dorset Council's job always gets easier when, you know, parties in a local area are working together. So I would be delighted to hear that the Youth Cafe Committee were engaging with the Town Council so that we could have one joined up discussion, not separate ones.
Thank you. So Councillor Burt.
Mr. Chairman, we really should be featuring on the letter that came from Wimborne Radio. That's the item as far as the agenda is concerned. We've moved sideways to discuss youth provision because that's possibly what the building might be used for. My suggestion or question is, in view of the fact that nothing seems to be going to happen on the youth work side, how much longer can Wimborne Radio be guaranteed the use of that building? Is it going to be that instead of a 3 weeks notice or whatever it was, that in fact they could be there for 3 months or 6 months, whether in fact Dorset Council are able to give us some indication in response to the request for Wimborne Radio for them to be able to continue to operate from there for some considerable time while things are sorted out.
I think actually
it's all different now. I mean, back in the 1980s, I chaired for a good many years what was called the Higher and Further Education Committee, which had responsibility for youth service across Dorset. So I'm quite well aware as to how things were organised locally then. But back to the point, how long can we expect Dorset Council to now change the notice for Wimborne Radio so that we have time to look at that problem and see if there's any way of solving it.
I think the offer's been quite clear that they've got at least 3 months. Yeah. Or more if you need it.
And we will continue to talk to Radio Wimborne through that 3 months to ensure either that there is somewhere where they can move to continue operating, or they have somewhere else to go. We're not gonna use that 3 month period won't expire and have Radio Wimborne injected to restrict it.
Thank you. Councillor Chakalata.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Yeah. I think my worry is that we are a stakeholder. Just a few months ago, probably late last year, Dorset Council were offering a lot of properties to parish councils to take over, because just as you know, we're struggling because of the reorganization funding and everything. I'm surprised that we've not been part of the communications as a stakeholder. I would probably want a commitment, Young, that any changes to your lease arrangements are out of courtesy. You will communicate with the council so that we know we have a discussion, we have an opinion. That didn't happen first time around. I would hope that if after 3 months, either there's an extension, we're going to put them out, you'd communicate with us. Because at some point, we may all take over that building as a parish council, which has been offered as part of some of the properties that they've offered. So if I could get a commitment from you that you communicate with Wimborne Parish Council, Town Council, if there are any changes to those lease agreements.
Yes, I don't particularly enjoy coming to town council meetings to offer abject apologies. So I will seek to do everything I can to minimise the number of times I have to do that, and I'm happy to meet.
Thanks, yeah.
Okay, Carol,
Thank you. So 3 questions which may not be easy to answer at this meeting. One, if Councillor Bartlett said there's a plan for 5 million set aside and you said for the building, could we know the details of that and the date of the committee meeting minute that supports that and the decision behind it? Secondly, if Dorset is prepared to commit 5 million to a building, why can't that be used as a designated use service rather than dilapidated small little building, St John's Ambulance Cafe, whatever one likes to call it? And thirdly, if due diligence is going to be done by Dorset Council on the new youth committee, could that also be shared? Because if the town council takes over the asset under an asset transfer from Dorset Council, then they also have to carry out due diligence, but it would be sensible to share it. That's coming as a previous chair of the Finance and Governance Committee. Thank you.
thank you.
Would you wish to say?
Yeah.
So yes, Dorset Council's capital program includes a sum of money which has been in the capital programme for some long time. I'm afraid I can't tell you the date because I don't know. For some kind of multi-use building provision in Wimborne. That's capital money, and in the rules of local government, which I'm sure you know, we can't use capital money to fund ongoing support of services. Capital money has to be used to invest in an asset. So spending money on investing in a building is investing in an asset. I can't just transfer that money and, for example, employ youth work or something like that, because in the unusual world of local government, we have different kinds of money, capital, revenue. So I can't just slide it across and use it for a different purpose. And the third part of your question was?
It wasn't so much used as a service, it was for the building. I understood it was for a building, but why couldn't this 5 million be a lovely purpose-built youth centre?
Well, the multi-purpose building that has been talked about could indeed be that, because it is really at the moment a sum of money in the plan. It isn't a drawn-out proposition. So there's still plenty of time to debate that. But sorry, I thought there was a third part to the question.
The third part was, would you share your due diligence on the youth committee with the town council, because they also have due diligence regulations and their financial regulations?
Yes, in the spirit of sharing, I would want to, but when you're doing due diligence with individuals, you do run into sort of data protection regulations about what you can share about what you know about somebody with another party. And also due diligence is it's like personal due diligence that's done for Dorset Council. It's only due diligence for Dorset Council. So while I, in the spirit of wanting to be helpful, I would seek to be, share as much as possible, but, sharing full due diligence is often quite tricky and probably leads to the town council to do something. That makes sense on that.
Councillor Nash.
Just to calm Carol's fears, if under the devolution process, if we were to take on an asset, there would be a business case, we would go through those procedures, and we would be very much engaged with Dorset County with that. It's very much impacted as part two of this agenda item, which we'll get to in a second. Just to reiterate, because I think I understand it, and I don't think it's been made clear. I'm amazed how calm we've been asked to be towards Dorset County, given the apologies that you've just given, and basically stating that you didn't do the due diligence on this, and there was a problem with the application. You now see that, and you triggered this action at that point. You apologise for that, and that's great. I really appreciate that. What's making you trigger it now? Surely at this point you say we shouldn't have triggered that. We take it back. Not you've got 3 months left.
I think that's what we have to explore is where you win more over that next 3 months.
I don't see that as a Raven Wimborne thing. I see that as a Dorset County procedural problem. Do you not?
Not in quite the way that I think you're alluding to.
Okay, but the action shouldn't have been triggered. It was something you said earlier. So
Yes,
are you willing to take that action back is what I'm asking.
I apologise for this short notice.
No, after Will's question, you did say that you apologised that the trigger had happened at all because you hadn't carried out the due diligence.
And I said it was premature.
Right. And again, so you triggered prematurely. Can we just take that trigger back is what I'm asking.
I think the notice has to stand because it is still the intention as things stand that building should have a different long-term purpose.
Thanks.
But I will take your point as far as saying there is more work to be done before I can be sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Barfield.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, I feel a way compelled to support and defend my officer from Dorset Council. Jan wasn't at the start of the beginning of this process. This has been going on since 2017, this project, and Jan wasn't with the authority at that time. So he's done pick up the pieces, as I said before, and before Jan's time, and he's picked up and Jan is sorting much of the issue out now, and that's around the continuity that was within the office team for place services. It was a new council, there was a lot of transformation that went on, and local government has been in quite a bit of upheaval in recent years, and we're getting through that. There is always going to be human error. We're all human. You're always going to get that error, But the fact is, and to answer Ms. Chedji's point, there is £5.5 million in the capital spend programme that came through a meeting in Dorset County with Kazan, and that fund is to provide a youth services building in Wimborne. The reason the youth cafe, the former St John's Amateur building, was picked was because at the time when we spoke to the headmaster, the head teachers at the time, its central location in Wimborne was paramount and was viewed to be an extreme bonus. When I went down originally and looked at the building, when I was still a district councillor, what I liked about the building was that it had a separate office at the back, which had its own external door. Now, as I said, for those of you that know what the planet was, what we're trying to replicate is what the planet did in part, and that would be for children to go in, speak with the youth social worker they booked a time with, because they're all on phones now, so they can book their appointment with the youth social worker, and it's to deal with STDs, alcoholism, drug abuse, social and domestic violence, cyberbullying, all the things that children have to go through now. And it meant that they could actually go and book that appointment with a social worker, enter the building through their own door into the office without walking through their peer group. To me, that was a huge thing. And as I say, the central location, the brief discussions we've had around how we reconfigure the building and develop the way we can develop are really exciting. And as I said, we brought the stakeholders together to have a conversation about the other part of the project, because the two are interlinked, which was a new multi-stakeholder building, which would provide a new studio, permanent home for Radio Wimborne, which my view is it would take them onto a whole new level. Sponsorship, they would look more professional. The facility they were going to get really was something that they would never have dreamed possible, and that would have come from Dorset Council, which is, as Jan said, it's what we try and do, it's what we try and deliver into the community.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams. So I'm going to put it out there. I don't feel like
Wimborne Minster Town Council has been involved in that 5.5 million, or who's going to plan it or stakeholder it or anything like that. So I'd like to propose that we're at the table, because obviously, I'm not sure if Radio Wimborne you knew that the new building was.
Yes, I did.
Yes, we were. We were invited along with Paul Canoe Club and Dream Boats to a meeting with Jan and Shane, where a plan was tabled, draft plan, sketch plan, of a large building. And the offer was, but then look very good, and I applaud the idea of it. I mean, another large building for the use of the community. I recognise that effect, Shane, thank you, Jan. We were asked to form a board, if you like, or a management company, three of us. It was going to be our job to oversee the building of this particular project. We found out at the meeting that the price was perhaps going to be about £2 million to build it. And yet there were no proper plans, no planning permission was given, no services laid on. But it still looked good. However, we were then told that we would have to share in the cost of the building. Okay, now, £2 million shared between three different parties isn't what Radio Wimborne set up for. And if you were to borrow that money over 20 years, it would be an absolute fortune. And we're not in business to do that sort of thing. So whereas it's a good idea, and we were very pleased to be there. And I was also told that if we didn't turn up, by the way, the threat was, if we didn't turn up, another person would take our place because someone else was very interested. Okay? So we did turn up, and we were interested, but we simply can't afford to get into that kind of business. See? Can you imagine it?
So this is where I am. This is where I think the town council can play its part. So I would propose that the town council kind of run this programme of work, working with Dorset Council, to kind of coordinate and bring all of the relevant parties together, because we should know, we're elected to know, and we're elected to make the decisions that should be made. But decisions without a formulated plan aren't really good decisions to make. So what we need to do is go away, I think, and form that plan. So my proposal is that Wimborne Minster Town Council take over the 5.5 million potential spend, work with all the key stakeholders, with what did you say it was, Radio Wimborne, who was the other two?
Paul Canoe Club,
Paul Canoe Club
and
Dream Boats, okay. But obviously there's also the youth cafe and our youth provision. I think the town council is well placed to kind of to take the lead on that. So that's my proposal.
Chairman, Wimborne Town Council will be brought into the room at the appropriate time. The discussions are very early. We haven't got anywhere near that yet. You know, we talk about due diligence. It's still a discussion around those stakeholders and the potential of what could take place. Those talks are in very early stages, and as I said, those stakeholders need to come into the room. We need to have a discussion so they can write their business plans from the aspirations that Dorset Council have got and the aspirations that all those stakeholders have got. I'm afraid the idea of Wimborne Town Council taking over the £5.5 million spend, it can't happen. This is Dorset Council's capital money, and they need to be one that are leading on this, not the town council.
So I'm not suggesting we take over the spend. I'm suggesting that we do that planning and due diligence so that it's all visible, so that there's nothing that just happens and then we get presented with a fait accompli. What we should be doing is making this all visible for all the stakeholders that are around the outside of this room tonight.
Well, I think the people around the room tonight, I think in the discussion here about a youth cafe, the discussion about youth services, where does it all come together? But jump in and say hand up for one.
Thank you, Sue. Yeah, as far as stakeholders are concerned, I actually think we around this room are all stakeholders. And why there should be such a small number of stakeholders invited to the meeting is beyond me. I also think that
in the future, we as Dorset Council, we as Wimborne Council will have a huge stake in youth provision in this area. And so we should be in at the very start of any discussion whatsoever. Of course, the Reef also is a stakeholder in this, and we've got to be very careful here as to how things go in the future. I walk past the Reef most nights. They have now provision of 2 hours a week for 2 different age groups of young people. That is all the youth provision they give there. So we have to be very careful, because we put a lot of money into that. They raised a huge amount of money to build it, and the idea behind it was for youth provision. So we mustn't lose sight that that is what we are really talking about here. That is the big thing, is the youth provision. And I think the letter from Wimborne Radio was excellent, and they set out in detail how inappropriate that building was then. Even with dedicated volunteers, it did not serve its function. And I can't see any way how, with the increased number of young people in Wimborne, it is now going to be an adequate facility, even spending a huge amount of money on it.
Can I just say one thing, then I'll go to 10 o'clock? I think Councillor Burt made a good point. This item is about Wimborne Radio. It's not really about future youth provision in Wimborne and Dorset, so we just need to clarify that. 10 o'clock.
So we've had a councillor make a proposal. I just want to check whether it's a seconder or whether it falls at the proposal stage.
I don't think, Mr. Mayor, I don't think it's something I can support at the moment, because the item on the agenda and what we're looking at is the letter that we had from Wimborne Radio. And I would suggest that we should be writing back to Wimborne Radio saying that we've had a discussion and we understand that there'll be nothing will happen as far as their occupation is concerned for at least 3 months, and that we would enter into discussions with the town council, the Dorset Council, and I know it talks in the letter about the canoe club, but they're really sort of out of it. They're down there by the scout headquarters. So I think we should take on board the letter from Wimborne Radio, reply to them and say that we feel that they should be given at least a further 3 months, and that we should write to the Dorset Council, put this in writing to the Dorset Council, that we had this communication from Wimborne Radio. We've had a long discussion covering the radio and youth service, and that we hope that the Dorset Council will continue for at least 3 months with Wimborne Radio and investigate and consider, in conjunction with the rest of us, the future use of that building.
So we will move on to that proposal, but we have got a proposal on the table. Do you want to amend it? Who's amended?
I'm just suggesting that we're at the table. So my proposal is that we're involved in any discussions to do with the spend of the 5.5 million.
I don't know where this 5.5 million is.
Yes, in Dorset Capital
Spend programme.
It sounds very much like the proposal from Councillor Burt with basically saying we would very much like to be at the table when discussions around the youth services specifically and the provision of that building. That sounds like a very solid proposal. I'd be happy to second that.
Yeah. And Wimborne Radio.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a bit confused here.
So,
Yeah.
Can we just, there's 2 things to talk about really. One is about our support for Wimborne Radio. The second one is about our engagement in the future new building if it comes about in Wimborne. So,
Can I just, I think that what's needed at this point is that the town council writes to Dorset Council and to Radio Wimborne, say that it supports Radio Wimborne provision within the town, and it will work with Dorset Council and support Dorset Council in finding temporary accommodation for the Radio Wimborne until a permanent home can be found. I think that's the acceptable too.
Absolutely, commitment. made on behalf of the council, but we're not going to put Radio Wimborne in a position where they have to
And I don't,
cease operation.
I don't think it needs to be any more elaborate or complicated than that, really.
I'll second that, if it gets the thing moving.
Okay, right, so we've got a proposal. The proposal is that we put our support behind Radio Wimborne and right to Dorset.
Right to Radio Wimborne and support to Radio Wimborne, right to Dorset Council saying that we will support Dorset Council in finding a temporary home for Radio Wimborne so they can still continue broadcasting and look to providing a permanent home hopefully in the future.
And do you support your second amendment, Councillor Burke?
Yes, it's a time we wound up on this one.
Right, should we take a vote on this? All those in favour? All those against? Okay.
So, can I just clarify, all in favour, please, can you show your hands again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any abstentions?
Okay, so that's carried. Should we then move on to the business about the future of possible building and multi-purpose use? Do you want to go back to your proposal?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it as one and the same, so I would have put them together, but I believe we should be at the table for the 5.5 million.
I hadn't realised that we lost a councillor. I'm really sorry, I hadn't realised that we. Chris, sorry, I didn't record your vote. Yeah, what was your vote on that? Sorry.
No, I thought that.
Okay, so you're reporting from the today. Sorry.
So I'm on radio.
Okay, sorry.
Right, okay. Councillor Wheeler. Yeah, so I suppose that we are at the table for 5.5 million pounds spent, so I think we are a key stakeholder in that 5.5 million pounds spent. And any organising or planning that is done around it, I think should involve the council.
I second that. All those in favour?
I didn't see that as an item on the agenda.
Sorry, can I just record the holders in favour? Moving very quickly. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Any against? Abstentions?
No, abstention again. The abstention thing. Thank you.
Okay, so Radio Wimborne, people, thank you very much for coming. Hope you've enjoyed the debate and our resolutions that will be happening.
Thank you. Before you go, somebody's dropped this from the stairs. Very quick.
Well, that's just the test.
That's very big. Interesting meeting, yeah, 7%. That's right. Any questions?
Try this.
He and the other trip, the demonstration. He's the sugar.
Not going to choose mates
Because when we did our job, when I think of it,
people went to the office.
But it's not, it's like everyone's saying we want to be part of it. There's no second visit, but a short
Addresses down the line. Okay, thank you. So on to item 5 now. Also, please, aren't here to report.
No, councillor sensitive holidays.
Okay, ward councillors representing Wimborne Minster, so councillor, you want to say anything else about it?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I attended, I think, this twice monthly meeting with the Women for Festival. But interested in what is said, I was later picking on Sunday with some volunteers for 2 hours. We picked up so many bottles, so we cleaned up the square, went into Red Courts, went to the behind Hallenboard, the river side, all the way to the core. There are about 10 of us. But what I realized that perhaps there are other people who do the same, and what we probably need to do is to link them down the college. So yeah, there's litter picking in, there's a lot of rubbish in town. Lots of bottles, especially the Red Courts, wine bottles, beer bottles, cans and stuff like that. Anyway, yeah, so thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bartlett, do you want to report anything?
Don't really have to report, Chairman. I can't remember last time, of course, the council submitted its responses to the changes into the NPPF document, National Plan Policy Framework document, which is going to be tricky because at the moment a number of council authorities, including Dorset, are looking to submit a local plan for examination in December 26, which ultimately won't conform to the new policies and the new NPPF. So Westminster, I don't know what they're thinking at the moment, but I just have to deal with Dorset Council, and that's the situation we're in. See what it is.
In terms of town mayor, so since we last met, I've been to a civic day in Dorchester. I reopened the Wimborne one of those trails, which was about the green plaques around the town, historical trail. Chris and I opened the model town on Saturday, and I attended a spring concert by Wimborne Choral Society in the Minster on Saturday night. We just go around the table. So if you represent the group, just briefly update us.
I was involved in your quiz, Mr. Mayor. Not your quiz, but wasn't a quiz, thank the Lord for that. It was in fact an auction of promises, which was poorly attended overall, but because you've got the bids online, it raised a huge amount of money. And I was delighted to be able to get out of the house and do something. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to welcome John back, he's not been terribly well last few weeks. Yeah, Councillor Bird?
Nothing further, I've said enough.
Councillor Ryan?
Nothing really to report. I've attended planning committee meetings, but
That's it.
That's a
That's his report.
That's a Brown.
Hello, yeah, Walford Mill, the flood damage was quite extensive, and they are worried now about insurance rises. And I think they've been quoted a figure which is really quite off the wall. So they are struggling in that respect. There was something else, sorry. They're still doing, getting money from the car park, which I don't know if people know this, that the income from the car park at the doctors goes to Walford Mill. And one of the things that they were worried about was how long is that big mobile breast screening unit going to be there? Because it actually dropped their income quite a bit. But that's it. They need more trustees, and they've got quite an ambitious programme coming up. So hopefully,
When all the mayors from the doors of Wimborne, they'll spend the afternoon at the Walking Mill.
yeah.
That's all we got. Nothing to report from there. Councillor Roberts.
Wimborne in Bloom, that's going on quite well. Well, personally, I'm very disappointed with the flower beds and things. They seem to most of the polyanthus and what have you have died. They do look a bit sad, but I'm not on the planting committee. St Margaret's and Stones, we had a meeting last week, because we only have 2 a year. The Reverend Andrew Rowland has now joined the trustees, which is a great thing because he's an ex-financier, I think, of some description. But also we've had a letter from the Gulpin Trust out at Tower of Launceston, I think. They've got a pair of semi-detached houses there, which they feel they can no longer maintain. And would we take them under our wing? So we're actively involved in that. They have got sitting tenants in them at the moment, but we'll wait and see. The Physic Garden, Chris and I met with a couple of the ladies that were representing them, and they were going out to buy plants. I don't know what's happened about that. I've been up and I haven't seen any great progress up there, so I don't know what happened there. And Lauren and I, we met up on Saturday or Saturday, wasn't it? At the Little Pickle, and we put our ideas for this reflection garden to each other. We came up with the same plan, basically, and she's put that on AI, and it's come up with a lovely drawing, hasn't it? So we hope we're going to be able to get on with that. It's just a matter of getting all. Floor seemed quite interested, but we haven't heard back from Wyatt, who are the big expensive builder in the town. So we might have to put out an appeal for help. So all seems to be working on.
Yes. I don't know if you know, but a few years ago there was a tree planted for the lost people in COVID up by that. Just go up this road here, you know, the garden there on the left. So if you were doing some reflection stuff, it might be worth talking to them if it would fit in. I don't know whether it would fit in or not.
Take a look, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown. Councillor Hector.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Nash.
Nothing to report, I'm afraid.
Councillor Porter.
Just 2 more items, Chair. There was a quiz that I think I came to join you about a month ago.
The Wimborne in Bloom quiz.
Yes. Then we also had the Town of Culture launch event, which I was attended. I really enjoyed it. So, thank you.
Okay.
Can I just pass on the apologies from the police who weren't able to attend this evening?
Anybody else? No? Okay.
Chairman, just as regards to the police, are they doing anything about the amount of drugs there are in this town? There are 4 individuals who are regularly seen in the recreation ground, going up to queuing And it is a very, very concerning thing because we've already had one child die of a drugs overdose in the wreck. And as I said, I think I was with Councillor Bartlett doing an inspection and we saw a individual come across, give a carrier bag to a chap on a bike and off he headed. And I think these people are well known to the police, but I don't know what they can do about it. But if they had a regular patrol like at QE, it might alleviate some of it.
Thank you. Say?
Well, I just encourage you, if you witness something, to report it to police.
Well, they've done that.
Okay, item 6, full council minutes, 24th of February 2026. So I hope we got through those. Shall I propose that we receive those minutes? Seconded by Councillor Hector. All those in favour? Councillor Richmond? No.
Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Any against? Any abstentions?
It wasn't there.
Okay, item 7, committee minutes and work group notes, appendix 2. So we just need to note those. Got sports forum, family environment. Q2 problem, and the recreation version and buildings committee. Any comments? Okay, item 8, recommendation from the council standing committee steering groups. So, Councillor Chakawata, do you want to report on this? HR matters?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we met a week ago as the HR committee. I think we are making arrangements and plans for the recruitment of the town clerk, and our proposal is to bring the job description and our timeline to one of the meetings so that full council has an opportunity to make comments and to offer feedback. Then we also intend to, to keep the full council informed in terms of any shortlisting interviews who's going to be on the panel. Thank you, Chair, that will be it.
Okay. Councillor Robert, Councillor Tom.
And also just to confirm the appointments of the new member staff.
Yes, thank you. We appointed a project officer to support the increasing workload of the town council, and that was undertaken by the town clerk, the general responsibilities, and we recommend that appointment. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts.
Well, I was just going to object to the appointment of yet another member of staff. We seem to be going up and up and up. And as far as I can work out from the accounts, we're spending more on staff than we are actually on the townspeople. And I'm getting very, very concerned about this. What is this project, officer? What's it for?
Yeah, so when the proposal was put to the HR committee, it was on the basis that a number of projects were embedded within the strategic plan and had been commissioned by the council and that hadn't been progressed due to the workloads of the officers. There was no resilience in the office to carry on and deliver those projects. Some of them included the Safer Places scheme, the refurbishment and repurposing of the 2 telephone boxes in the town square, the climate action plan, climate action working group. Those are a few just off the top of my head, but I think it was a list of about 8 projects.
I'm just going to say, as regards to the safer Wimborne plan for the children of this town, that to me is one of the most urgent things in this town. Having witnessed from my window a lot of bullying going on in the recreation ground, I think it is something that needs to be urgently addressed. And I know Councillor Hector has done an awful lot of work for this and just basically needs the permission to go out and speak to the people who have volunteered and put up the note.
Just to point out as gently as I can, to Councillor Roberts, that was the staffing cost.
I can't hear you.
Just to point out that the staffing cost of any organisation is normally the majority of the cost. And it's a misnomer to say that that's not going towards the townspeople, because that money is using a staffer to then do the work to get to the townspeople's priorities, including the Safer Spaces programme. So I take your point, it's a lot of money, and I take your point, it's a large percentage, but that's how we get things done.
Or not.
Okay, item 9 is the Wimborne Cemetery. So you have the activity report, site inspection report, the noting. Councillor Brown, did you go on?
Yes, I did, and I think there's some really challenging things happening there, or potentially challenging things. The break-in, it's now quite heavily targeted, and we discussed different things that might be possible, like tracking things on the nickable equipment. Also, perhaps, we went to Gardle there, you and I, and one of the discussions I had there with the team, what's the most exciting thing you're working on at the moment? And they said this device, when the secure area is breached, it immediately releases this non-toxic mist that would make most people run away. And that might be worth doing in the chapel, but it's not the workshop. I'm also, I've got, hope you're all going to come if you haven't come before. We're doing the Commonwealth War Graves Walks in War Graves Week. And that's becoming quite interesting. And I'm meeting with Councillor Ryan to discuss how we can form a Friends of the Cemetery.
Good, good. Also on this item, we've had a correspondence with a resident about the current fee structure. So you probably know that residents pay less, but I think town clerk's got the information.
So the request, it's a very unusual request because once we've looked into the circumstances from the residents, her deceased husband was actually a clerk at the cemetery. So I also had the decision to confirm that we would, in honour of that service, that we would confirm the residence fees and refund the difference. And I hope with council would agree with that decision. And secondly, what we say at the moment in terms of the fees is that we give a 24-month grace period. And the residents saying, can you think of would you be happy to do a longer element if someone was to provide information, evidence that they had lived in the town for say 20 or 30 years. I mean, that in itself will bring issues on how we actually, if we were to agree to that, how we would agree how to evidence it in terms of what would we ask people to supply, council tax bills, I don't know, it's a bit of an issue. It's also, if families have experienced bereavement, that's a difficult thing just in itself. When we ask them to produce lengthy correspondence bureaucracy that goes about 20, 30 years, which is adding to that stress. So I just think we need to think carefully about it, and it'd be nice to get a view of what councillors think.
Okay, any comments? Go for that.
So I'd like to immediately propose something, which is that we ask the cemetery manager to make recommendations for systems that she might want to put in place, and recommend that maybe there could be, because I think people move, especially with this particular person, they knew they were going to move away and they knew they wanted to move back for burial, and there may be an opportunity to have put a placemat down or something like that, saying, I know I'm moving away for the last period of my life, but I would like to come back to this town where I'll spend time and the rest of it. That might be a simple way to do that, and maybe with a smaller cost than the increased fees that you would have from being out of the town.
Okay, so are you proposing that we put it with the?
I'm proposing that we ask the cemetery manager to review this and propose changes if required.
Okay. I'll second that. All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Abstention. Okay. Item 10, you probably know the government's announced a UK Town and Culture competition for 2028. And we are encouraged to consider that by our advisor on the Town and Culture, David Lockwood, who is Chief Executive of the Arts Development Company. Lou's worked very hard in researching this, and you're meant to do expression of interest, which you've got a copy of there. Yes, Town Clerk.
There were some gaps in it, and there's been some slight amendments, nothing major, so I'm just bringing up the latest version. But essentially, it's the same expression of interest, it's just been tightening it up with some names have been changed or confirmed, or some additions in terms of what we're currently providing.
And the basic organisation there's three groups. Maybe a small towns group. There'll be an overall winner town that will get £3 million. And then there's several other towns that will get £250,000. Two other towns will get £250,000. If you apply and you're shortlisted, they give you £60,000 to repair the full bid. So we need to decide whether we want to bid for this or not, or what people's feelings.
I'm extremely happy that we do this. It's the work's already been done. Most of it was done for Town and Culture anyway. It follows on the fiscal opportunity is massive. And it will follow on from Town and Culture. Just bearing in mind that if we want to debate this for too long, the application has to be in by 11 o'clock tonight.
12 o'clock. I think they're talk about pubs closing by a certain time. Okay, any other views? Councillor Burt.
Yeah, we go for this, sorry, and we get awarded the money, well, we might be able to solve the problem for Wimborne Radio and the drop-in centre for the teenagers.
Very good point. Councillor Richmond.
Yeah, I noticed that at this stage, we've been through this before. This is an expression of interest. I noticed on the website for the actual promotion, it makes a specific comment that you will be invited to a bid later on. The contents of the proposal or the interest at the moment might include considerably more, and I would hope that in the bid we actually added more to it.
I think you've got a word level.
We're limited to the amount of words we can put into the form to do that 400 perspective.
Okay, any other comments? That's about it.
Yeah, sorry, can I just get your head around this? Is there an additional cost to us entering into this?
No.
There isn't. There's no additional cost whatsoever.
No.
At this stage, no.
But at a later stage?
No, the plan is that the government fund support funding for if we get through to the next level, and then we would have to go out for additional funding to deliver the project supported by the government's funds.
So we'd have to go out to find additional funding, did you say?
To support the delivery, if it's exactly like the town culture project we're doing, we have put some funds, the council put some funds. We've gone away and added to those funds by going for external granting opportunities. The government one will give us some support funding, but we will have to go out and see if we can secure additional external funding. It's up to the town council whether they want to put in a bid as well or support funding for it.
I think that the Arts Council.
So to secure additional funding from outside sources, not from the town council, from our precept.
We haven't got the detail, have we?
No, and that's a decision council can take in when the next, when we set the precept for 2027-28, part of the consideration will be, if we get through to the next stage, do you want to put anything in the budget for it?
That's about it.
Actually, I'm a little bit sceptical at the moment, Chairman. We just can't keep on increasing the precept. The Operatorial authorities are told by government, you will max out your council tax because there isn't funding coming down from central government. And we all know that precepts of town parish councils aren't capped, but there is only a finite household income coming in. And we've got a lot of families that are living on the breadline within Wimborne. It's not the affluent town that people think it is. People really struggle. It's like cost of living here. Housing is really high. Rents are really high. and the mortgages, as we know, are going up due to global considerations. I'm very nervous about entering something where we might end up increasing our preset to fund a bid to get into a lottery that we might make some money at the end of it. I've got a concern around that.
Okay, Councillor Burke.
Yeah, congratulations to whoever it was that wrote it all up. After the job's done, I think it might be the town clerk. And therefore, I think her idea of going into retirement might have to be put on the back burner. And that we're obviously going to have to put some money in some time towards it if we are going to enter into the bid for this. And if we were to be successful, then there's quite a hefty reward. And we must just bear in mind that we're the second tier of the local government. There's only 2 tiers now, Dorset Council and the local council, the town or parish. And there's more responsibility is going to fall upon the parish and town councils. So it took a while to read it all, but somebody was patient enough to answer all the questions in the light print and do it in this and the dark print, and I'm assuming it was the town clerk, and it's a shame that she won't be able to retire after all.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Councillor Hector.
It's just gone. No, so I do agree with Councillor Bartlett's concerns. I do think at this point, having an expression of interest to explore it further is great. Maybe it's a discussion for later, but my concern was about the resources within the office to deliver this later, just to make sure, because would Emma be staying on, is Emma? Would she be staying on to help if we were?
Not necessarily.
Or we'd have to go out again to maybe, but it might come later discussing that. But yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone could cope with the workload, because that is what's pushing other things back sometimes, is not having the resource. So that's one concern. And also I know that some of the businesses are not actually giving, because they pay into the bid, and I've been asked to go and help with that to try and get some of the funding donations. So I do worry that they've partaken in the 2026, that 2 years later, doing the rounds again, it might be a bit tricky. And as your point was, Councillor Bartlett, that a lot of people are on the deadline, businesses. So I just feel very mixed at this point.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
I was just going to reiterate.
I thought it had to be done by the 31st of March.
Yes.
That's
The
tonight.
expression of interest.
So we can't make a decision. We can't just put it on the back burner.
I was just going to say what Councillor Hector has already said, that businesses in the town just cannot afford to keep on giving. And, you know, you've been out to various places to get sponsorship for this city of town of culture. Are they going to wear it if we go out to them again?
Okay, any other points? I think at this stage, we don't really know the detail about how the funding will work. They're saying, you know, there is this carrot, which is this 250,000 or 3 million if you win it. But what they're not said, for instance, I don't think, is what you've got to come back with 1 million, whatever.
It's my understanding that they haven't asked at any point that whoever delivers it will have to match fund.
Fine. Okay, good. Councillor Bryan.
Yeah, I think with the concerns that a couple of the councillors have said today about, you know, the impact of money and everything on everybody are very valid. But if the decision got to be made by midnight tonight of expressing the interest, then I think it was safe to express it and see where that takes us.
Okay. So, Councillor Richmond.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. Expression of interest. I'm really concerned because last time I was told within this chamber, the expression of interest, it was an expression of interest. It was a bid. It was directly a bid. I'm concerned that this is an expression of interest and we make a calculated assessment in the autumn, should we be selected. because it's a serious involvement. I mean, this is a knock-on from the City of Culture, which was intended to encourage investment in warehousing in the surrounding areas. And I can't see that we've got much capacity for increasing interest in the community. But in the interests of any general interest that the council is showing, I would support a submission of interest with a reassessment, a careful reassessment of what it's going to cost at a later time.
Yeah.
But that's
So
the competition,
find out-
checking it.
We do find out fairly quickly if we've been shortlisted, I think like late spring, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to propose that we do apply for this 2028 permaculture.
Okay, so can I just qualify, can you propose that you submit expression of interest?
Sorry, submit the expression of interest, sorry, yes.
Chairman, I thought Councillor Richmond had put the proposal on the table. I thought I read between a proposal that we would submit an expression of interest. Sorry, I'm not putting words in your mouth.
I would suggest that that was an amendment to yours, that it was essentially a submission of interest that will be reviewed at a later time should we have any positive outcome from it.
To see if there was a cost of the council.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, well,
Okay, so what we're proposing is that we apply for this and also putting in at some stage an assessment of any funds that we may have to go with.
It's committing to the assessment.
Just coming to an expression of interest. Councillor Nash.
I'm very happy to second that.
Okay, all those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions?
So, Councillor Roberts, are you voting in this? No. Are you abstaining or?
Yes, I'm abstaining.
Thank you.
Okay. Move there. Item 11, correspondence consultations. So you probably looked at appendix 1, statement of regional expectations. And we need to decide today whether we're going to sign up for this or not. I think it sets out the relationship between the upper tier authority and the second tier authorities. Any comments? Councillor Nash.
Yeah, this took an awfully long time to get together and DAPCC, I think, was really shows their words very well. I think it's very well written. I think it's a good starting point for the devolution process, and I would happily suggest we adopt it.
Councillor Bartlett, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm happy to take that, and it has taken a long time. But I remember I brought a motion to council, not this council, but to the shadow authority during LGR. This very thing about the collaborative working and engagement between the upper tier authority and the DAPTC, which is the umbrella organisation overseeing the town and parish councils. So it has taken a long time to get to this point, so I'm happy to second it.
Okay. You want to say, Tom? Okay, so we go for a straight vote. All those in favour? So,
Thank you.
okay, future meetings. So our next meeting is 7th of April. Got their help and RBC. And if you've got motions for future meetings, please let the town clerk know. And we close the meeting at 8:00.